Welcome to Journal Entries. I'm Samantha Hawley, and I work with successful women in business and leadership who are making six figures and tired of their work stress bleeding into their home life. I specialize in the ripple effect, helping you regulate your nervous system so that you can be focused and fulfilled in your career and patient and present at home. If you're ready to leave work at work and choose presence over performance, you are in the right place. Welcome back to Journal Entries. This week, we have an incredible guest for you. We've got Stefanie here. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Samantha. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited. Before we dive into all of the juicy areas that we're going to explore today, do you just want to explain a little bit about how you got into the work that you do? Because it's so interesting. And I think it's so interesting too, probably how you got involved with it.
Yeah, thanks. It's interesting because so many interesting.
I know.
Because my story really actually starts when I was a kid, and it's been really neat to see sitting in there, how like becoming a mom really gives perspective for me on like how this started in my childhood. And so it's been a really full circle, in the past couple of years for me. But I was a kid who always had stomach issues. Like from the time I came home from the hospital, apparently my parents say that like I just had tummy troubles. And, by the time I was like a preteen, we started, seeing doctors, seeing if we could figure it out, and they really couldn't help me. I actually found out as an adult that they told my mom when I was, a kid in their care that they thought I was making it up for attention and that they had real kids to treat. And
Oh my gosh.
which is like so crazy learning that as an adult and realizing my mom was just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to believe. But she actually very much believed me, which was awesome. But I just had terrible stomach aches and my doctors couldn't figure it out. And so I changed my diet at the ripe young age of almost 12 going on 13, really 12 going on 30. I was a mature, weird kid, but I like owned taking charge of taking a different approach with my diet, and it totally changed my life. Symptoms I'd been having for 3 months, or symptoms I'd been having for 3 years, started going away within like 3 months. And it really just made me super aware of the relationship of food as a catalyst for dis-ease in the body or food as medicine. And so fast forward a decade later, I have graduated from college with a degree in conflict resolution. I was like committed. I was like, I'm going to make world peace. And I came back to the US after doing my undergraduate degree abroad and was shocked at how sick all of my peers were. How they were all so tired and fatigued and had acne and bloating and all these things, and how every commercial on American TV was either for a junk food or a medication and alternating, and people weren't putting the pieces together that one causes the other. And I realized that my actual life's calling was to go back to, I'd always been really interested in nutrition and health since I was a kid. Actually, when I left home to go to college, my mom was like, I think you should be a nutritionist. And I was like, shut up, mom, you know nothing about me. Of course, mom is right. And so I went back to school for a degree in holistic nutrition, and the rest was kind of history. I just, during that process, became very infatuated with the female body and understanding how magical she is, and like learning everything I could about our cycles and baby making and beyond. And so that was kind of where my interest led, but it's been a beautiful journey in the decade since.
Wow. That is really neat. And I can only imagine coming back home from being abroad and seeing that. It probably was such a harsh reality, like a real wake-up call, I feel like.
Totally. And, because I already had this background of nutrition from being a kid, I actually used to have, one of those little camcorders, like, that we would like record family videos. And my sister, I used to have her record me making my own cooking show, Staying Fit with Stefanie. And it was like making your family's meals healthier. I'd make like banana bread with yogurt or something. And, but I had that background. And then when you live abroad, I mean, it's not that it's perfect, but there's so much less processed food and there's so much less fast food and junk food everywhere, and people cook more. It's just a different environment. And so, yeah, coming back as like for the first time really as an adult was quite shocking.
I just pictured when you said like recording yourself, I pictured Girl Talk. Did you ever have one of those? Yeah. I loved that thing. But anyways, so what is the scope of your work? How do you help women? Because it sounds like that's kind of like a big project, a lot of areas that you can help women in.
Yeah, absolutely. And while I definitely have areas that, I help a lot of women in, for example, women who are coming back, the way I describe it is like being online, after postpartum, after having children, after having babies, want energy back, want to feel more like themselves, want to feel more confident in their body, want to figure out like, how do I be the most vibrant version of myself? Or women who are on the other side of that and wanting to get pregnant, and really anything in between with hormone imbalances, gut health, etc. But really, the way that I describe it is if you are a woman who wants to play the game of show me how good it can get in terms of how good you can feel in your body and how good your life can be when you and your body are working in harmony together instead of at odds, then we're a good candidate to work together.
I love that. And you're so much more than a dietitian, right? And so, what is your approach that's different than someone who is hearing this and might be like, oh, I just need to change what I eat or eat more protein?
Yeah. So I actually had to make a decision when I went back to school. Do I go and become a dietitian or do I not? And do I go like a holistic nutrition route, which actually didn't give me the RD credentials? And I specifically chose to not become the dietitian because I knew that if I went down that path, I would have to spend the 3 years after the next 2 years unlearning everything I learned in dietitian school. Because to be a dietitian, you basically are fed what the FDA wants you to know about the food pyramid and what it wants you to know about the My Plate recommendations. And if you be a dietitian, they're going to recommend Special K for breakfast with 1% skim milk. And I mean, anyway, that could be a whole separate podcast episode. But what is so different about what I do is I believe in your body's ability to heal itself. I believe that you are divinely designed. I believe that your body is wise and that our current environment and our modern lifestyles are just not giving your body the right tools that it needs to be able to express optimal health. And so we come in, me and my team, as like a health detective, right? We're here to like uncover blocks to your wellness. Those might be nutritional blocks. They might be bacterial blocks in your gut. They might be, environmental blocks like mold or something like that, whatever they may be. We're here to uncover what blocks might be preventing your body from expressing itself optimally and helping your body deal with those imbalances so that it can come back into balance for itself. So we really approach it so differently. Like we're looking at the body as an entire system, not individual systems. If you go to the doctor for your annual checkup now and you say, okay, I've been having headaches and I've gained some weight and I feel like my hormones are out of whack and I'm not sleeping well and my stomach hurts. They're going to give you 3 referrals, one to a gut doctor to check out your tummy aches, one to a neurologist to check out your headaches, and one to an endocrinologist for your hormones and your weight gain. And each of those doctors is going to only look at that very specific system and say, this is what's wrong and you need a medication. Whereas I look and I think, what is causing all of those things to happen? What is the root cause underneath that? And that's where we want to address it. So it's really a very radically different approach, but we get radically different results.
I was going to say too, when you go to your doctor and say those things, they might not even give you those referrals. Because I went a couple years ago, 1 or 2 years ago now, and I shared a few of those things. And I was 3 years postpartum, maybe 3.5. And my doctor said that it was still postpartum and that I should go to a therapist, which I was already seeing. So it's that too, that like doctors don't even take you seriously half the time, which we know from your child story, right? They thought that you were making all of that up. I'm curious though, it seems like each person you work with is such an individual approach. Like you really take the time to learn about that person. Are there any common blocks that people that have when they come to you? Or is it truly like based on your current lifestyle and where you live, it's up in the air and different for everybody?
There are definitely some common blocks for sure. I mean, yes, like there are so many individual variables, and we do want to take that into account whenever we're helping someone come back to wellness. And if you eat the modern way and you live the modern way, you're going to have the modern symptoms. And some of those are going to be shared across the board, right? So I remember once I was doing this workshop to a group of moms, and we were talking actually about perimenopause. And was talking about protein, which is very important. You might actually need more protein,
Yeah.
even if it's not the full solution. Um, and I asked the question of like, what are you guys eating for breakfast? And it was funny. There was almost like a camaraderie and like almost like a pride in like a whatever my toddler doesn't eat, like the scraps of their toast, or the handful of goldfish as we're out the door on our way to, school. And so, I mean, there are some of these like common things. I mean, not getting enough nutrition, like not getting enough of like adequate real food nutrition, eating packaged foods, even if they're like quote unquote healthy convenience foods. Convenience foods are still not going to be giving your body what it needs. Another block can be in the nutrition space, a deviation from more of our ancestral traditional diets. And this doesn't necessarily mean paleo. I feel like when I say that, they always think like Paleolithic. I'm talking about like what your great grandparents were eating 200 years ago. Like a deviation from more of that more traditional way of eating can be a block to our bodies being able to have the nutrients and vitamins that it needs. And then like just not having blood sugar balance. Like people are on this like blood sugar roller coaster. And specifically when we're talking about hormones, blood sugar balance is the foundation for everything. Like you cannot have balanced hormones if your blood sugar is on this roller coaster all day. And so that's a really big one that we'll see. And then another one that I will say that I see as a pretty common block is liver congestion now. We live in a pretty toxic environment and world. And unless you're a particularly conscious consumer and or doing things that really support your drainage pathways, so basically your detox systems being open, it's likely that you're going to be congested and that can lead to other problems down the line.
Interesting. I think I was in I don't want to say season, a time
Yeah.
recently where I didn't have a lot of nutrients in my body, and I didn't realize it until my mom came over and dropped off a lunch for me. It was like her leftovers, and my mom is super healthy, nutritious, all of that. And I had told her that I had just made myself lunch. She asked what it was, and it was nachos. It was Tostitos with cheese on it. And honestly, I made that for my son, and he didn't eat it. And so I ended up eating it. And what she had brought me was leftovers of like rice and tons of sauteed vegetables. And I was going to put kimchi on it and all of this. But I was full from these nachos. And what she said to me was something like, remember that you need energy too. And I thought it was just like a wake up call that we need more than just a meal because it's lunchtime, that food actually has a purpose, which is on one side, like, duh, of course, but we forget that as moms, especially. And then hearing what you said too about blood sugar and how it's not only related to your energy levels, but also hormones, which I feel like a lot of my audience is starting to think about perimenopause or they're going through it. I had no idea about the correlation with blood sugar to hormones. So is there anything that you could share about regulating that?
Absolutely. Really briefly, before I go into that, one thing I just want to say about food, I love that your mom gave you that reflection. I think of food as code. Like food is not even just for energy. Yes, like absolutely. In my practice, I teach there are the four levels of eating. So there's like eating for pleasure, eating for energy, eating for recovery, and eating for health. And what I aspire for my clients is to get to level 4, to eat for health. And usually when people are eating for recovery, it's like in one of those diets, they're doing a Whole30, they're doing something like that because they need to from eating the cumulative effects of eating for pleasure and eating for energy all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not concerned with like the quality of the food. We're not concerned with like what the food is actually telling our bodies. And so if we can reframe and start to think of food as code, like it truly tells your body how to express its genes. It tells your body whether to be well or not. It will totally shift the way that we approach eating, and like how we see meals and nutrition with ourselves and with our families. So I love that she gave you that reflection and we can just kind of expand on it. But when it comes to blood sugar regulation, there are like a few easy rules to follow. And I will say for anyone who's a mom, like these apply to our children too. When you start applying this to your kids, you will see kids who have less tantrums, more sleep better, who are happier. I mean, I have a client who was telling me about her 6-year-old who has anxiety, and it like broke my heart. I was like, why are we in a world where a 6-year-old has anxiety? And then, I started asking questions, and he's addicted to candy and he eats a bunch of fast food. And it's like, of course, his body is expressing anxiety with that. And so these rules that I'm going to share like can really help our children also be regulated. They're just little humans. So the first one is no naked carbs. And this one always blows parents' mind because I assure you, you are giving your children naked carbs as snacks and probably yourself. So what does that mean? A carbohydrate is, yes, like you're thinking bread, pasta, pizza, right? But really, a carbohydrate is anything that is like primarily carbohydrate when it's broken down and it doesn't have fat or protein as like the primary macronutrients. So this is also fruit, apples, bananas, nectarines, peaches, whatever. So if you were to give your child, or if you were to have a banana as a snack, that is a huge blood sugar spike for you that like eventually you will come down and not feel that good, and then you need to do it all over again. But if you eat that banana with almond butter, with cheese, with yogurt, with something that has fat or protein alongside it, it's no longer a naked carb. It's dressed with fat or protein, and it will help stabilize your blood sugar. Fat is the most blood sugar stabilizing macronutrient, and then protein thereafter. So anything like, again, that yogurt that has fat in it, or cheese or almond butter, anything that has that fat is going to stabilize your blood sugar better. So when you're thinking about snacks, like you don't actually even have to have the carb, but if you're going to have the carb, it needs to have the fat or protein alongside it. So, a great snack could be like avocado and prosciutto. That's like doesn't have any carbs. That's fine. But if you were going to have the apple, have it alongside some, like leftover shredded chicken or something from the night before.
Mm.
So that's one big one. Any questions about that one?
No questions, but I've heard that you should pair like the banana with almond butter, like pair groupings.
Yeah.
And I never really knew why. I feel like I just heard that it would keep you fuller for longer. But honestly, I feel like learning why always motivates me to do the thing. And so learning that it's actually for blood sugar, and then the result is for me, like hormonal, helping hormones. And then for my kid, it helps with emotional regulation, essentially, is like, I want to do this. It's not just a should.
Totally. Yeah. And I mean, kids have hormones too. Like they have stress hormones, they have cortisol, they have sleep hormones, they have all of these things. Like we think about hormones as like purely reproductive. Like we're
Yeah.
thinking that, is like, okay, like when's my period coming, or when am I extra excited about having intimacy with my partner? But the hormones control so much else. They also control our appetite, which is why one of those reasons that it helps stabilize you for not feeling hungry later. I mean, hormones is so much bigger than actually
Yeah.
just periods.
Right.
Yeah. And then another thing I'll say about blood sugar regulation, and this is like one that sometimes gets me in trouble because people don't like what I have to say about it, but caffeine, especially caffeine on an empty stomach. So for all of the ladies out there who wake up and do their coffee before breakfast, you are sabotaging your blood sugar for the whole day. And so making sure that you have your breakfast before you have your coffee, or you at least have them at the same time. Ideally, it would be first breakfast and then coffee, but like if you need to, at least doing them at the same time will go a really long way towards stabilizing your blood sugar.
Now, why does it mess it up for the whole day?
Yeah. So if you think about your blood sugar kind of like a roller coaster, right? Like think about like how it starts really influences the rest of the ride, right? Like
Yeah.
think about when you get on a roller coaster. I don't know if anyone's been to like Six Flags or anything recently, and you climb 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 and you climb, and it's really slow. And then all of a sudden, zoom, and that's like how it's going to gain momentum for most of the rest of the ride.
Yeah.
So the beginning of our day really matters. So starting your day with coffee and then, before breakfast, or not starting your day with enough fat or protein, or eating too late, all can not only mess up your blood sugar, but then mess up your metabolism. So if you're like trying to feel more confident in your body in terms of like losing weight or anything like that, this is huge for you. So like I mean, there's so many blood sugar like recommendations I can make, but I'll add one more here. But basically, if you can have 30 grams of protein and some fat alongside that, I love protein, but we can't take it without the fat. Like lean protein is actually not your friend. Within an hour of waking up in the morning, you will set your blood sugar up on like the right track for the day. But if you don't eat until 10, or you don't eat until 11, or you have coffee and a banana for breakfast, that's like the worst combination, right? Your blood sugar is going to just be wild the whole way down.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I'm learning so much. This is
You're like,
amazing.
okay, breakfast within an hour.
Yes. So I know that one thing you say is that minerals are the spark plugs to life and the key to unlocking abundant energy. So can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I'd love to. Minerals play such an important role with all of the systems in our body. And so if you think about a spark plug, right? Like think about like a long extension cord, right? And it keeps getting plugged in and plugged into each other. If at any point in there it unplugs, like you lose power down the line, right? And so minerals are those spark plugs, connecting all of the different systems in your body together and turning them on. So for example, digestion, right? When someone comes to me and has issues with digestion, well, 100% I want to look inside their gut and I want to see, what's the breakdown of good and bad bacteria? Do they have leaky gut? I also wonder about their minerals, because if you don't have enough sodium and potassium, your body doesn't literally have the tools that it needs to fuel and spark digestion. When it comes to hormone balance or thyroid function, like let's use thyroid function for a second, because I feel like a lot of people have suboptimal thyroid function and either know it and they're not really doing anything about it, or they're on medication. But for example, minerals, calcium and potassium play such a big role. And so a lot of times, if someone, even if their thyroid like looks okay, but they're having symptoms, so they feel tired, they feel fatigued, maybe their hair is thinning and they're cold all the time, but they go to the doctor and the doctor's like, everything's fine. Sometimes the thyroid hormone will be showing up in the proper amounts, right? I'm doing little air quotes here for people who are just listening and not watching. Will be showing up in the proper amounts, but if your body doesn't have enough potassium, it can't fuel the cell. So basically, it's the equivalent of like having an employee who sits at their computer and like moves their mouse around all day and gets like marked as present and gets paid, but got nothing done, is not productive. So minerals are like the things that help everything else work. And so when we don't have enough of them, which is incredibly common with women, especially moms in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, because when we have babies, there's this massive mineral transfer that happens. We give them so many of our minerals because we love them and we want them to grow, and it's a biologically normal thing to do. And then if you breastfeed, you're continuing to give away your minerals. And then if you get pregnant again and you do this all over again, it ends up that you're incredibly depleted. Now let's add in supplements that people take, synthetic supplements, prenatal vitamins, women's daily multivitamin, the AG1 that you saw on someone's podcast or Instagram that you were like, I'm going to try for 3 months. This will exacerbate mineral imbalances. And over time, with like exposure to toxins, exposure to poor food, these multivitamins, mineral transfers to children, we end up in a really mineral imbalanced place where no matter how much sleep we're getting, no matter how much exercise we're doing, we're tired. And so a lot of times it comes back to the minerals and like replenishing and balancing those minerals, which allows the body to truly wake up and thrive.
So then the next obvious question would be, how do you know what minerals you have and especially what minerals you're lacking?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple that like for the most part, everyone is lacking when you kind of asked about like some of those like general things.
Yeah.
I find that 9 out of 10 times I run an HTMA, which is the hair mineral analysis, which we'll talk about in a second, on someone, they're coming back low in sodium, potassium. And so it's just like our diets are depleted of potassium. It's, something we have to be very intentional to get enough of. And with sodium, we've been taught to be afraid of it.
Yeah.
Right? Either people are getting way too much sodium from packaged foods that are not real food, and so their body can't utilize that sodium properly. But most people are afraid of using enough salt, of real salt. And so one tip, if you leave this podcast today with literally anything, I want you to go check what kind of salt you're using in your kitchen. If you are using any sort of like Morton's table salt or any salt that has iodine added back to it, any like not sea salt, not any like very real salt, throw it away. Don't bother about finishing it. Don't care how much money you're losing. Just throw it away and go and buy a real salt, a sea salt or a salt from the earth that has color, that has texture. Your salt, like that is where we're getting so many important minerals, but it matters what kind of salt we're getting. So most people are lower in sodium and potassium. Most people could utilize more magnesium. But generally speaking, we test, right? Because, someone could be really anxious and have really painful periods and be really bloated, and that could be because they have low sodium and potassium, or that could be because they have way too much copper in their body. And so testing really does give us so much insight. I really love hair mineral testing because when we're looking at the hair, we're looking at tissue. And so what we're seeing is approximately like a 3-month snapshot of someone's mineral status. Whereas if you were going to get a blood test for this, it's the highway system. It's telling you like potentially impacting, like what it's telling you is potentially impacted by what you ate for dinner the night before, right?
Yeah.
Whereas with a hair mineral test, we're really able to see how is your body utilizing minerals? How is it like showing us patterns of stress management? How is your body dealing with stress? And therefore, what is it doing with these minerals? And so it's way more insightful. And I mean, people have amazing results, transforming their energy, their body's ability to, again, spark, plug, connect. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember seeing one, I think it was on your Instagram, one of your testimonials about someone and how they became so much more aware of certain stress patterns that they had, and then how it all stemmed from this hair mineral analysis. And that's where I was like, wait, what? How did this come from a hair test?
Well, because what happens when the body is in stress is it uses high levels of minerals. So, like if we're seeing someone in an active stress state, then we're seeing that their body is like pushing out high levels of minerals, and over time that will deplete them quite significantly, right?
Oh, okay.
Like we're able either to say like, "Oh my gosh, you're in like a really current intense season of stress," or sometimes someone will say to me like, "That doesn't really track with how I feel in my life, like things feel good." And then that gives us insight that something in their body is causing them stress, right? Like maybe hidden gut infection or maybe a mold exposure or something like that. So that actually gives us like some really key clues into like knowing where to investigate deeper and finding the cause of like other symptoms they might be having. So it's very, very cool. We can be looking at signs of internal stressors. So again, those like gut issues, whatever that is, or external stressors, life, relationships, business, finance, whatever.
Yeah. That's as soon as you said that, I was like, ooh, that's the juicy stuff. That's like my realm is helping people dig into that. And I feel like that would be so cool to know, like the science behind it, right? And like the actual facts of these are all of the things that I'm depleted in, and then start questioning the why behind it and then, solving it from there. Are there certain like levels that are common that you need to be looking out for, or like uncommon that you're like the red flag should be waving for that?
Yes. I mean, there's like all over the board with both, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's pretty common to see either people have like very high or very low magnesium, very high because their body is pushing it out due to stress, right? It doesn't mean you have too much magnesium. It's showing us that it's leaving the cell because your body is like under stress and using a lot of magnesium, or very low and depleted. I mean, the magnesium levels in our soils are so depleted. Like we are not like, as a person whose full-time job is like focused on eating exactly the way that I should be eating to eat as close to my ancestors and all the things, I take a magnesium supplement every day because I've been doing my HTMA, my hair mineral analysis for years. And like whenever I stop taking my magnesium, it dips because we just are not getting enough in our dairy and in our soil. So there's certain things like that. Like, yes, it's really common for people to not have enough magnesium or to be using so much of it due to stress, which then depletes it even more. And then there are like the big red flags of like sometimes when people will have really high iron on an HTMA. And it's interesting because a lot of those people will be anemic when they test their blood. So like their doctors have been telling them for years that they're anemic. And so they take iron supplements or things like that. But actually they're just not moving iron particularly well or using it. And it's storing in their tissues, which that can actually accumulate and lead to really high levels of inflammation, which can translate to so much oxidation. Like if you think about a rusty car, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what happens when metals oxidate, right? Like that's like what's happening inside your body. And then like parasites will come in to eat that. And we can end up with just like a whole slew of mess there. I see that not super often, but like sometimes. And so that's like a pretty big red flag to look for. And that and the next one I'm about to share are very closely related, which is also high or low copper. Copper is like the feminine mineral, and you want her to be like Goldilocks. So, not too much, not too little, just right.
Yeah.
And when we don't have enough copper, we end up with premature gray hair. We end up with a lot of like hormone imbalances and feelings of anxiety. And when we have too much copper, it's the same. So much anxiety, a lot of stomach issues, brain fog. My sister actually had really high copper when I was doing her HTMAs. And when she started taking beef liver, her brain fog went away immediately. She had such debilitating brain fog that she would get so anxious doing like presentations for work. She has like kind of a big job in an organization, and it like totally transformed her life because she like was like, wow, the brain fog is gone. And the reason that these two are so connected is because most people are very deficient in vitamin A. And vitamin A is what helps us use and move iron and copper. What is vitamin A most present in? Liver. So when I talk about the way that your great 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 grandparents used to eat, they all ate organs. They all ate head to toe because you didn't waste anything with an animal, right? And actually, they knew that liver was really good for you. That was like, when you go to the animal kingdom, this is actually really a neat fact. The male lions eat first and then leave, whatever is left for the females and the babies. And they eat the organ meat and they leave the muscle meat for everyone else. Like we know traditional cultures all over the world, indigenous communities all know the value of organ meat, and our culture just doesn't value it today. And so I see a lot of times women who are coming to me in their 40s who've never eaten liver and they have really high levels of iron and copper causing inflammation in their body. And all we need to do is eat more liver, some other things too, but like I'm buying it, eat more liver, and their bodies respond super, super well and are able to start utilizing and therefore flushing those excess minerals.
Oh my gosh. This is incredible. I feel like everyone listening is wondering what their like body is like and what's happening inside, and probably wanting to do their own test. So how can we get our hands on a hair mineral analysis test?
Yeah, so I'll send you the link, Samantha, and we can put it in the show notes. And we can also make a super fun coupon code for your audience. So if you guys want 15% off a hair mineral analysis, we'll put that below. And I'd love to do it with you. It's really a fun way to get insight into your body. And like that's the cool thing that I just like to say about functional labs. Like I speak a lot about ancestral nutrition and like the modern environment that we live in causing a lot of modern problems for our bodies. And like we really need to be looking back for solutions for today, right? So like eating in a way closer to our ancestors and stressing less and using the sun more and all of these things that like we've lost, wisdom from, and like go back to that using that ancestral wisdom. But like the marriage with the modern is these functional labs. Like they give us so much insight into what's happening in our body. And like we can use modern day science to see that and then use these traditional tools to solve for them.
Yeah, I like that. So we don't have to rely fully on modern day and all of these things and pills and, medications. It's kind of like going back. It's also reminding me of like hustle culture, how that was a thing for a while, like rise and grind and just push, push, push and work, work, work. And now at least I feel like maybe it's just who I'm following and surrounding myself with, but it's almost like, let's take a step back and like relax. And like you said, stress less and do what we like are driven to do internally, not because somebody told us to do. And I feel like that's the life that a lot of women had back then, so it's slowing down more so.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's like a renewal of that in, when we take time to prepare food for our families, right? It's like embracing that, like, it's okay to like prioritize this and let this be slower and take some time. Like not everything needs to be about like, what's the most convenient, what's the fastest, like sometimes I think it's like around that hustle culture, like this idea that everything has to be like, go, go, go. But like, maybe we're asking the wrong question. Like when people are like, what's your like fastest tip for this? Like, look, I get it. Like I do a lot of like quick, easy meals, things like that to make moms' lives easier and business owners' lives easier. Like I'm in both of those boats. I get it. Yeah. But like, sometimes I think we're also just asking the wrong question. It is like, where can we find the moments where actually slowing down is what's most nourishing? So yeah, I love that you're in that space too.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. This was so enlightening and I'm so excited to dig deeper, but thank you so much for being here, Stefanie. I will share the link in the show notes with everybody. And thank you everyone for tuning in. Feel free to tag Stefanie on Instagram and screenshot this episode and share what you've learned and what your biggest takeaway was. I have a whole list of notes off to the side here of all of the things that like kind of blew my mind, but thank you again, Stefanie.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And just people, come say hi. Love connecting.
Thanks for joining me for today's journal entry. If something resonated with you, I'd love to know about it. Screenshot this episode, share it on social media, and tag me at samantha.s.says. Or even leave a review, which will help more women find this podcast to create more fulfillment in their career and as a mom. And hey, if you're thinking, I wish I could get more of this, I've got you covered. Click on the link in the show notes, which I customize each week based on what we're talking about. And I always include the link to the Calm Mind Blueprint, which are my 5 journal prompts to go from overwhelm to inner peace in 2 to 10 minutes a day. Subscribe so that you catch my Thursday 5-minute journal with me episodes and next week's full episode where we will continue this journey together. I'll see you then.